Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle." While the world awaits the next big revolution in science and technology, those who are hustling to bring about the future are already at work in a brave new world of insight and discovery. So many discoveries, so many, too many, to amaze the minds of the attentive listener that even in this 1 hour I'm going to do a rare retake of disclaimer because I completely wrote this to mess with me. In my reading, when I'm thinking in my head, I swear to God, I'm messing with like the actual extroverted version of myself sometimes. Okay, let's do it again. Let's do it again from the top. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle." And while the world awaits the next big revolution in science and technology, those who are hustling to bring about the future are already working on a brave new world of insight and discovery. So many discoveries to amaze the minds of the attentive listener that even this 1 hour a week condensation of information is insufficient to significantly communicate the sheer scope and scale of the precipice upon which we now stand. We have reached much greater heights in our understanding of the universe and how it works than even the most informed among us can grasp without continually tuning into the number one source for such intellectual groping, This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind I can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening.
Been a while.
What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening?
I don't think there's any music. Because Alex can hear it himself. Oh, that's because we don't have a monitor? No, wait, we normally hear the music still. Could you hear it in your headphones? Is that what happened? Yeah, okay. So, okay. We'll just keep going.
Sure, why not?
Good science to you, Blair. Blair?
Oh, hi.
Where's Kirsten? Where did she? She's not here.
I'll never tell.
Oh, my goodness. I better continue with this show as though nothing unusual has taken place. Welcome, Blair. You're co-hosting this week.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks.
We have got a jam-packed episode of This Week in Science ahead. There are so many stories here. I don't know if we're going to get to all of them. Some of them are even on cardstock. This is how impressive the production quality of the show has become. What did you bring for us today?
I have a story about coffee, another about cigarettes, spiders, birds of a different color, and the potential that perhaps Mark Zuckerberg might be hiring some ants.
Hiring ants?
Yeah.
Well, you know, if he's got relatives, they should work too. You know, don't just give him the money for free. I have brought virgins, mania. I've got something cooler than cool, and potential ancestor story that's going to revolutionize where we may or may not have come from. Possibly.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Maybe. If
Sounds very fuzzy.
if it pans out. I think I'm going to start, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
With this is one of those things that when science and scientists look to the next big thing, sometimes they need to look at the old little things. It's a really interesting story that could revolutionize a lot of stuff. Mollusk shells, crab exoskeletons, these are things that have been studied for years and years because of their high impact resilient qualities. But now there's something to rival the resistance, and it comes from an unexpected source. It is the bright orange fist-like club of the Mantis shrimp, or stomatopod. The stomatopod, a 4-inch long crustacean found in tropical waters, accelerates underwater faster than a .22 caliber bullet is fired. And its repeated blows can destroy mollusk shells, even crab exoskeletons. So while the crab is the crushing power of this crab is really interesting, David Casales, assistant professor at Bourne's College of Engineering, and his collaborators were more interested in what enabled the club to withstand the 50,000 high-velocity impacts that take place over its lifetime. Essentially, how does this crab's hammer survive itself being struck 50,000 times as though it were itself getting hit by a bullet? They found that the club is highly complex in its structure. It's comprised of 3 specialized regions that work together to create a structure tougher than many engineered ceramics. So it's a natural structure that's just really tough. First region, located at the impacting surface of the club, contains a high concentration of mineral similar to that found in human bone, which supports the impact when the mantis shrimp strikes prey. Further inside, there's a highly organized and rotated layers of chitin, which is a complex sugar, fibers that are dispersed in minerals and act as a shock absorber, absorbing the energy and stress as waves pass through the club. Finally, the club is encapsulated on its sides by these oriented fibers which wrap around the club, keeping it intact during the high-velocity impacts. This club is stiff, yet it's lightweight and tough, making it incredibly impact-tolerant. And interestingly, shock-resistant as well, says Casales. This is the holy grail for materials engineers, as opposed to the Holy Grail itself, which is only of interest to Monty Python fans. Casales and his potential applicants said the potential applications in structural materials are widespread because the final product could be lighter weight and more impact resistant than existing products. For example, with electric cars, less weight will reduce power consumption and increase driving range. With airplanes, less weight would reduce fuel costs and have a better impact resistance, would then improve reliability and cut repair bills. But his primary focus in investigating this material is in body armor. If you can make a body armor that's lighter weight and resists bullet impacts better, then you've really done something huge. It says body armor that the military uses can add 30 pounds with service members' load. And then they got backpacks. Like the 30 pounds itself would be rough for me. I'd have a hard time running around doing anything with an extra 30 pounds in a backpack or body armor or whatever this is. So that's his goal. Develop a material that's a third of the weight and thickness of the existing body armor. Says here he's also studied structures of marine animals for inspiration over the years. Sea urchins, abalone, snails. He says, we've been studying these other organisms when we should have been studying this guy because he literally eats them for breakfast. Force created by the mantis shrimp's impact is more than 1,000 times its own weight. And it's so powerful that he has to keep it in a special aquarium with a really strong, thick glass because he would otherwise probably break himself out. And we have some video up there now on the
it's in slow-mo.
In slow motion of the big punch. That's crazy looking. Also, the acceleration of the club creates cavitation, meaning it shears the water, literally boiling it. What? Forming cavitation bubbles that implode, yielding a secondary impact on the mantis shrimp's prey. It boils the water it's attacked. What? So that's pretty intense. Yeah, the team we put together is excellent, having experts in zoology, mechanics, modeling, and synchrotron X-ray characterization gave us multiple views of the same problem, making it a very thorough investigation. Excellent.
So do they think that it would be bulletproof?
Yeah, that's the idea. Because it itself, the material or the way the structure is formed, resists over a lifetime basically what would be the equivalent of 50,000 .22 caliber bullet strikes, that it should be completely effective as a body armor. And so that's what they're looking to develop. But they're talking body armor. They're also talking you could create a material that could be used like as the shell of a car, replacing the metals that we use. Although,
so they would try to synthesize this molecule like in a lab. Then,
well, the overall structure of the material, right? So the different ways that it's layered together and put together, basically they would looking at that and creating new materials.
That's awesome.
Totally revolutionizing stuff. Thanks to the Mantis shrimp. Wouldn't that be awesome? The whole next wave of, forget about steel. Steel was primitive.
Right.
Now we have Mantis shrimp technology. That's what's going to take us to the next stage.
We should know better than to try to make our own armor. We should really just look at what already is out there.
Oh, yeah.
Probably the best thing is already there.
Yeah, but 1,000. The other thing, too, is the Mantis shrimp is just impressive even without that. Boiling the water with its...
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
That's crazy.
Any animal that needs a special enclosure, especially a little shrimp.
I know.
That's awesome. Some little shrimp needs more containment than potentially a shark.
It's what did it say? 4 inches? 4-inch long shrimp? Yeah, 4-inch long shrimp. needs extra thick glass in the aquarium. Wild.
Sweet.
Ooh. What you got, Blair?
Well, I have a new story about trying to quit smoking. New research says that eating more fruits and vegetables may help you quit and stay tobacco-free longer. Fruits and vegetables, people. It's one of these first studies that have looked at the relationship between fruits and vegetables and consumption and smoking cessation with cigarettes. They looked at 1,000 smokers over 25, and they used random digit dialing telephone interviews. And then they did follow-ups with these people 14 months later. It was purely observational, but they did more than people have done with these kinds of things before when it was just a snapshot. When they would call somebody, they would ask if they smoked, if they had quit, what their diet was like. Now they were asking if they had changed their diet recently, how much of it was fruits and vegetables, if they had quit recently, how long they had been off cigarettes, if they still smoke, how many cigarettes they smoked, all of these kinds of things. So what they found was that smokers who consumed the most fruits and vegetables were 3 times more likely to be tobacco-free for at least 30 days when they followed up with them after 14 months. They even adjusted the study according to age, gender, race and ethnicity, education, household income, and health orientation. They found that smokers who hadn't quit, who ate fruits and vegetables, had a high fruit and vegetable consumption, smoked fewer cigarettes than people who didn't have a high fruit and vegetable consumption, and that they waited longer to smoke their first cigarette of the day. So they didn't know exactly why yet, but their possible explanations are that it makes them less dependent for one of several reasons. It could be the high fiber because it makes them feel fuller. Lots of people confuse
Totally. The hunger pang
yeah.
and the Nick fit are very similar.
Yeah, exactly. And so they also said that a lot of people had reported fruits and vegetables after eating those, they made the cigarette smoke taste really bad.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting because they also found that about 19% of Americans are still smoking, but the grand majority of them have an urge to quit. And so the only thing about this that they don't know yet is if people who just eat more fruits and vegetables are less dependent. It's just something that is linked, but there's no causation there from one to the other.
Like, or it also could be like they're more dedicated to trying to live a healthy lifestyle. Right. That's why they're smoking less, and part of that dedication is, well, I guess I should start eating a lot of fruits and vegetables.
Right. Yeah, but so I guess the next step now is to do clinical trials where they take people who on paper look pretty much the same, and they give one of them just a normal diet and another one a very high fiber, high fruit and vegetable diet, and see if one is more successful, I guess, in quitting.
The chat room, a lot of people are like, I just don't get cigarette addiction. Why do people keep smoking? So to make this very clear, I got the experience, so I can answer that question for you very, very easily. Smoking doesn't do anything for you. Stopping smoking cigarettes makes your brain stop working, makes you not like people, and also all your nervous system goes haywire. So you just get really, really go insane at the same time. So it doesn't do it. You don't get something from it. It's not like people are smoking like, oh, good, I'm now getting something. It's relieving the pain that's caused by the addiction to nicotine. But,
Well, I guess it makes you look cool, though, right?
it used to. Smoking used to be cool,
Yeah.
right? You know, that's why people started, because like James Dean, cool. Everybody wanted to be cool and smoking that cigarette. And I don't think it really looks cool anymore.
Well, there are still teenagers now that are starting smoking, so you got to wonder if it's just 100% rebellious.
Yeah. Well, now it used to be the norm. I mean, it used to be everybody in this country smoked. It's one of my favorite things watching the show Mad Men. And then like they'll get in an elevator and everybody's lighting up in an elevator. Like it's totally normal, right? But yeah, there is a story. I do have a story here about what makes cool. This is a research led by University of Rochester Medical Center psychologist and published in a journal of individual differences. Did you know there was an entire journal dedicated to individual differences? You do now. I found the characteristics associated with coolness today are markedly different than those that generated the concept of cool in the first place. When I set out to find what people mean by coolness, I wanted to find corroboration of what I thought coolness was, says Ian Darnimrod, PhD lead author of Coolness, an empirical investigation. So yes, Professor Darnimrod decided to figure out what made somebody cool. I was not prepared to find that coolness has lost so much of its historical origins and meaning that the very heavy countercultural, somewhat individualistic pose I associated with cool. So he's very disappointed to have figured out that I think what Nimrod is saying, Darnimrod, excuse me, is that the kids today aren't using the word cool, and he's very disappointed in this because he thought this was something that was going to stay forever. For instance, James Dean is no longer the epitome of cool. Wow, how did that change so quick?
Disagree.
Oh, well, okay. Oh, maybe it didn't. Maybe he is still the epitome of cool. He's a great actor, too, actually, if you watch his movies. The much darker version of what coolness is, still there, but it is not the main focus. The main thing is, do I like this person? Is this person nice to people, attractive, confident, successful? That's today's cool, at least among young mainstream individuals.
That is the most vague statement I have ever heard.
But you know, Dar Nimrod wants to understand what cool is, so he's looking into it. And research that has developed over several years. Dar Nimrod, currently a postdoctoral fellow at the Medical Center's Department of Psychiatry. His colleagues recruited almost 1,000 people in Vancouver, British Columbia. Well, how are you going to find a cool person there? Looking in the wrong place.
Yeah, what makes cool in Vancouver might not be what makes cool elsewhere.
There might not be cool in Vancouver. I don't know if it's possible to be Canadian and cool. But, you know, hey, this is where they are, so this is where they're looking. They complete an extensive questionnaire on the attributes, behaviors, and individuals they associated with the word cool. In the journal article, the research described as the first systematic quantitative examination of what characteristics recur in popular understandings of the cool personality. Wow, how much less cool can you be than this study? So awesome. The researchers conducted 3 separate studies. In one study, participants generated characteristics that they perceived to be cool. Study 2, 2 samples of participants rated dozens of these characteristics on 2-dimensional coolness and social desirability. In study 3, participants rated friends both on their coolness and on a variety of personality descriptors that were identified as relevant in other studies. Wait, what? They rated their friends both on their coolness and on a variety of personality descriptors that were identified as relevant in some other study. A significant number of participants used adjectives that focused on positive, socially desirable traits such as friendly, competent, trendy, and attractive. Yeah, has trendy ever been cool?
Well, that's almost a definition of cool because you're following the trend. You're following what's popular.
But I thought that wasn't cool. I mean, is it cool to follow a trend? I always thought that
Have
you
no
weren't supposed to
mistake
trend. Once
that-
it was a trend, it was no longer cool, and you were
Once-
supposed to be on to the next thing.
Once 2 or 3 people do something, a trend catches on, and everyone, I mean, the idea of I'm different, so I'm cool, you're actually being like everyone else that's being different. It's a trend.
That's so uncool. But Nimrod, Dar Nimrod, goes on with a little bit of personal blogging in this, or journaling, right? I got my first sunglasses when I was about 13. There wasn't a cooler kid on the block for the next few days. I was looking cool because I was distant from people. My emotions were not something they could read. I put a filter between me and everyone else. That, in my mind, made me cool. At 13, this guy was going to be a psychiatrist. Already at 13, he was already giving himself a self-analysis.
But that's like I'm sure in middle school and early high school, that's when you're convinced that being mean will make you look cool in front of people.
Oh, you're one of those people?
No, I wasn't because I couldn't do it.
Oh.
So it's just one of the many reasons I was
cool
not
because
cool in middle school, but
I was cool because I was always really mean and snarky to bullies. So that in my mind made me cool. Today, that doesn't seem to be supported. If anything, sociability is considered to be cool. Being nice is considered to be cool. And in an oxymoron, being passionate is considered to be cool. At least it is part of the dominant perception of what coolness is. How can you combine the idea of cool, emotionally controlled, and distant with passionate? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Like, what is cool? Darn Nimrod. Man.
I don't.
Just be cool, man.
Agree
Just be cool.
to any of that.
Just be cool, man. You're putting way too much. No, you can't try that hard to figure out what cool is. If you're trying to figure out what cool is, man, it's not cool.
Isn't part of being cool
Just gotta be
being
cool.
a small percentage of the population? If everyone was cool, no one would be cool, right?
Yeah, I'm down with that.
So if it's about being nice and being sociable, I would say the majority of people are sociable. So
Right.
the minute you say that's being cool, then
But I think you could be cool, and not be antisocial. I mean, you can be
Right.
completely social and cool, but you just gotta be cool about how you do it, right?
well, you have to act like you have something special.
You
that
have
no one
to
else
exactly.
has.
It is. It always comes down to the secret.
It's my sunglasses.
Everybody know what the secret is? The secret, if it's a confidence thing. Mm-hmm. If you say something or believe something, act like something confidently enough, people will believe you and will gravitate success to you. Just acting confident. I think that's probably what cool is. It's a confidence thing.
I would agree.
Wow, I must be not so cool. I think we might have time for, is it time for?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Blair's Animal Corner with Blair. She works at a zoo, likes hippos, isn't that fond of pandas.
No, it's true. I don't have a story about hippos or pandas or insect sex either. This week I have a story about birds. About Gouldian finches from Australia. They found that the bird's head color was directly linked to their personality. At Liverpool John Moores University, they found that the Gouldian finches with red heads were more aggressive than the black-headed finches, who were found to be more bold and more risk takers. They thought that the head color was used to signal personality to other birds so they would know how to interact. They're very social finches. So what they did is they took a bunch of these birds and they put some of them in an area where they put an unfamiliar an object, which they had was a bundle of string dangling from a perch, to find out how bold they were, how quick it took them to interact with this foreign object. They found that the black-headed birds were far more bold, as they called it. They would go to the bundle of string way sooner. Then, to test risk-taking behavior, they took these finches and they put them in an area where there was some food, but they had to go out into a cleared area where there was a cardboard hawk outline. So it looked like a hawk flying over them against the sun. And so they would pass that by, so they would think there was a predator coming, and they timed how long it took them to then venture back out and get their food. And they found, again, that the black-headed birds were way faster to go out and get their food, meaning they were more of risk takers. Then for aggression, they put the feeder out that only had space for one bird, and they saw who kind of took over control of the feeder space. And they found that the red-headed birds were way more aggressive. And in fact, they were way quicker to displace and display. They'll open up their beak and they'll just put kind of a fiery, aggressive posture up towards the other bird, and they did that pretty much right away. They figured out there was a direct correlation between the head color and their behavior. And so now they're trying to figure out kind of chicken and egg scenario, where did the one color bird end up being more aggressive after they had that color, or did they start developing these colors so that they could pick up on social cues amongst each other? And then what they're looking at now is they're trying to study them in the wild to see if the black-headed birds only hang out with the other black-headed birds, or if they mingle, or if one takes advantage of the other's approach. So that's all very interesting.
I think I've been doing a science podcast with a red-headed bird. The shin kicks, right? Doesn't that sound like Kirsten?
Well, I have my black hair, so I don't know what that means. But yeah, I mean, they've seen other animals. Like I think there was some sort of tortoise that different color markings they associated with different behavior before. They've just never done a testable study to see if there was a direct, significant correlation between the two.
But this is but yeah, I mean, it can be like, I would assume that the coloration differences came in vitro, right?
Yes.
So they're
all born. Well, okay, so they're all born with kind of an almond brown color, but it is genetically determined what color
already, and it's probably. I bet you they'll find that it is a hormonal thing in vitro that's already predetermining the behavior, which also is affected the color change.
I think you're onto something.
It's epigenetics. This is something that they've done a lot of and figured out in, what is it? Foxes, I think.
Right. Well, now you'd have to look at the birds, the moms, and see if they gave a proportionate number, like if the red-headed female had a higher number of red-headed babies, or if she only had red-headed babies, or if it really wasn't correlated at all. That would be something to look at too.
Right, but the other thing you'd have to test is the hormone levels of the mama bird,
right,
with the baby bird egg still there, or you know what? Wow, it's an egg though.
It shouldn't matter.
Wonder how much. No. I don't know. Wonder how much goes on once the egg is.
There's always eggs.
How
it doesn't get impermeable until pretty much the very end.
Okay, but
it doesn't calcify until the last.
Right, but when is the hormone? I guess the hormone's already. You could test the egg, but then how do you know what kind of birds you're gonna get? Oh gosh. You could test the eggs for the hormone levels in the egg, I guess, maybe. Or no, it wouldn't. That'd already be too late. I have no idea. That's so strange.
Well, you could test the hormone levels in the mom.
Right.
Assume that it'd be.
Would that be present? And it would have to be at the time when that coloration change is taking place or being determined, which I believe happens really early.
Right.
I think that's like one of the first, like right after the arms and legs are formed. I think that's right around the time that the coloration is being determined for like fur and hair color and that sort of stuff. This is I've got 1, 2, 3. I kind of want to do this ancestor story thing now, but it's such a maybe. And like, I don't know why I'm so doubting the study already, but it is on heavy cardstock, so it makes it feel very important. I think we're going to do that one in the second half. Got financial mania, why bankers and politicians failed to heed the warnings of the credit crisis, as well as Alzheimer's. Something very interesting, exciting, new in the Alzheimer's world. We're going to get to that and more stories. I see Blair has still got a big stack of stories sitting right there. When we come back, more This Week in Science right after this.
I did it.
I know what to say.
Can't explain the things you heard with more than intuition. The line of reason shows the way to go. No conclusion. The methods of hypothesis and patience are the only things I need. Put on a pair of goggles and go looking for the things I couldn't see.
Twis would like to thank Audible.com for sponsoring this episode of This Week in Science. Audible.com is the leading provider of audiobooks with over 75,000 different titles in a variety of genres. Twis has found many science-based books in the Audible library. You can start a free trial today and get any audiobook download for free. All you have to do is sign up at audiblepodcast.com/twis. Go to audiblepodcast.com/TWIS now for your free download. Twis also has merchandise you might enjoy. Head over to twis.org to purchase our 2010 Science Music Compilation CD. Yes, I said CD, and a World Robot Domination t-shirt. Twis is supported by listeners like you. Your donations pay for our hosting, bandwidth, contractors we need to hire, and fun things we try to do for the show. We appreciate any amount, $2, $5, $10, even $100. You make this show possible. We accept donations through PayPal and have made the process easy by putting donation buttons on each show page on our website, www.twis.org. So go to the website, listen to the most recent episode, comment on the show, and make a donation. We thank you for your support. We couldn't do it without you.
Answers lie somewhere within this scatter plot. Our first assumptions were correct. Disprove the rest. It's hard. The methods of hypothesis and patience are the only things I need. Put on a pair of goggles and go looking for the things I couldn't see. Methods of hypothesis and patience are the only things I need. Put on a pair of goggles and go looking for the things I couldn't see. I couldn't see. I couldn't see. I couldn't see.
And we're back with more This Week in Science. Oh, where do we want to start? Chat room. I'm going to let you decide. Financial mania. Questionable ancestor story. Alzheimer's. What do you got?
I also have an Alzheimer's story,
We
so
have
maybe we
to-
should do both of those right now.
Let's do yours first.
Okay, all right. So I have a story about Alzheimer's and coffee. Believe it or not, high blood caffeine levels in older adults can prevent you from getting Alzheimer's.
Nice.
Yeah. So they looked at people over 65, and in a 2 to 4 year study follow-up, they looked at these people for 2 to 4 years. They found that people who had a high blood caffeine level avoided Alzheimer's better than those who didn't.
Wow.
It's a big deal. University of South Florida and University of Miami looked at, this is a very tiny study. It was 124 people. It's almost negligible, but they were looking at this in people after looking at this in mice for a very long time. So I think that's why they felt like they could draw a conclusion from the study, even though it's small. And yes, I agree, they need to do a much larger study in the future. But the results showed that adults with mild memory impairment who drank moderate levels of coffee, this was about 1 to 3 cups a day, would not convert to Alzheimer's disease, or there would be a substantial delay before Alzheimer's set in. And so they found that also with mice, as I mentioned. And so they looked at people, lots of these people had what they call mild cognitive impairment, which is kind of like the first step to Alzheimer's. It's where you're starting to forget things, but it's not quite going where it usually goes, where you start getting kind of Swiss cheese brain and your memories just start falling apart completely.
Yikes.
This is just the initial stages. And each year, on average, about 15% of people with MCI, mild cognitive impairment, progress to full-blown Alzheimer's. But what they saw here was that no one with MCI who later developed Alzheimer's had initial blood caffeine levels above what they consider a high caffeine level, about 1,200 nanograms per milliliter. And so that's what they were saying is about 3 cups a day. Or if you drank several cups just before you gave blood, is the same thing. But they found that if the blood caffeine level was what they would call substantially lower, that's about 51% less than those with the high blood caffeine level, they had a huge increase in their likelihood of getting it. And they found, in fact, the figure for the people with high levels they found 100% of people with MCI and had the high caffeine blood level experienced no conversion to Alzheimer's. It was a small study, again, but 100% of people with a high caffeine level did not get Alzheimer's, even though they had MCI. And they don't know what is happening in the blood here that's making the caffeine stop the Alzheimer's from setting in. They're still kind of trying to figure out what the mechanism is, but it's happening. And they're not that surprised because recently they found that coffee helps all sorts of different things. Parkinson's disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, breast cancer. And in fact, in the New England Journal of Medicine last year, they studied over 400,000 people and found that coffee drinkers reduced risk of dying from heart disease, lung disease, pneumonia, stroke, diabetes, infections, and even injuries and accidents. You were less likely.
Wonder drug.
So everyone drink your coffee.
That is absolutely great news. Mm-hmm. That is a fantastic story. So the one I've got is goes into how this is a complex neurological dementia disease, right? This is the World Health Organization says that dementia is, and specifically Alzheimer's, is one of the fastest growing global health epidemics of our age. Which is interesting because you would think that we're drinking so much coffee, right? That we wouldn't, everybody's drinking coffee, right? There's a Starbucks across from a Starbucks on every corner now.
I have a theory, though, because I feel like just maybe 10 years ago, I would say, people started demonizing coffee and caffeine pretty hard, saying it was affecting your growth, it was affecting your children, it was affecting everything. Which, yes, there are still some negative effects to caffeine, but it sounds like people went way in the opposite direction, and now they're going, oh, maybe it's not so bad now.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a huge list that you just rattled off about the positive effects of it.
Yeah.
This is kind of interesting. There is no cure for Alzheimer's, though, if you get it. So having anything that prevents its onset is really critical. There are medicines that are out there that can mitigate symptoms. There is a hunt for a cure, and there's several different things that the scientists are looking into. This one here in this story deals with a vaccination. Yeah, there was one human vaccination study that was done almost a decade ago and had a ton of adverse reactions. So they discontinued it. They gave up on that. The vaccine used in this study activated certain white blood cells, which started to attack the body's own brain tissue. So it actually sounds like it backfired pretty massively there. This new treatment, though, and here is being presented in the Lancet. Disclaimer, a couple disclaimers to come. So this is Lancet Neurology. Involves active immunization using a type of vaccine that is designed to trigger the body's immune defense against beta amyloid. In the second clinical trial on humans, the vaccine was modified to affect only harmful beta amyloid. And the researchers found that 80% of the patients involved in the trials developed their own protective antibodies against beta amyloid without suffering any side effects over the 3 years of the study. Researchers believe this suggests that the vaccine is a tolerable treatment for patients with mild to moderate Alzheimer's. Larger trials must now be conducted to confirm that this vaccine's efficacy can stand up. A study was carried out. This is the thing, though. This is the study is here, but it was financed by Swiss pharmaceutical company Novartis, and it's being published in the Lancet. Lancet has, as we've talked about on the show, had some history of publishing studies that were kind of basically advertisements of in-house pharmaceutical company research that they wanted to put out. But I'll give it, there's Professor Bengt Winbolt of Karolinska Institute, Alzheimer's Disease Research Center in Huddinge, and leading neurologist and Swedish Brain Power Network consultants Niels Andersson, Karolinska University Hospital. So this is looks like it's all kind of Svensked up. So take it with that one little grain of it's in the Lancet. It's funded by a pharmaceutical company. There's a history there. There are also, I remember reading stories about nicotine being very helpful with Alzheimer's too. But it sounds like there's, aside from actually attacking the thing that's Swiss cheesing the brain,
right.
Keeping the brain active, just in general. I mean, we've had tons of these stories where even things like interacting with Wii games or, just keeping an active social life can help prevent the onset of Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia.
What was interesting about what you just said, too, is that when you say vaccine, I think preventative.
Right.
But it sounds like it was something that they give to people who are already exhibiting Alzheimer's.
Yeah, it says though that it's not a cure, and it doesn't really go into enough detail here, unfortunately. But it kind of sounded like it was had a leveling effect, because there's nothing in here that says it's reversing effects.
Right. So I guess it would be preventing against further attacks,
correct,
as opposed to reversing anything.
Yeah. A progression aversion vaccine.
Well, do you want to hear more things about animals? I have another one.
Oh, I like this story. I was looking at maybe doing this story too. This is a good one.
So, vampire spiders, very interesting spiders to begin with, because they're these jumping spiders, kind of self-explanatory there. Spiders that jump. But these guys are called vampire spiders because they will get vertebrate blood through a vector. They will catch a mosquito and drink the blood out of the mosquito. Not eat the mosquito, just take the blood.
Which might not, is it even the mosquito's blood?
No, it's vertebrate blood.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So what they found was they were trying to see how these jumping spiders could identify their prey when, only female mosquitoes have blood in them, drink blood. The males don't. But they all look pretty much the same when they're together. They were trying to figure out how these spiders could identify the females that are swollen with blood that they could eat. So they kind of hypothesized that it could be the antennas, because when you look at a mosquito up close, that's pretty much the only thing that looks different between a male and a female is the antennas. And what they did is they used Frankenstein mosquitoes, they called them. They took male and female heads of mosquitoes and recombined them with male and female abdomens in every combination you can imagine. And they saw who the spiders went for. What they found was they would always go for an intact female first. They can definitely tell the difference between the swollen abdomen and the male abdomen. And then they also, to kind of control for that, took a female head and put it on a female thorax, so that just because they messed with it, that wasn't a reason they were avoiding it. Right. And then they took the female head and put it on a male body. And they did go for the female, but then when they did it with a male and a female head, they always went for the female head. Always.
Interesting.
Even if there was a male head on a female body. So then this is the really crazy part, they took 3D animation tests. And they made these kind of Frankenstein mosquitoes digitally, and they had the spiders reacting to the digital images.
Wow.
And they still found that the antennas definitely were something that they were responding to.
That's pretty. I like the digital one wouldn't be such a hard project, but I can picture coming into the lab and it's like, okay, so what are we gonna do today? All right, Justin, you're going to take the head off a male mosquito and put it on a female. Then you're gonna take the thorax from a female. You're gonna put it on the head of the. Like, really, this is what I'm gonna do all day.
I remember in high school putting a bee abdomen on a stick. I had to glue the bee abdomen onto a stick to pollinate my plants.
Wow.
And that was that
like
was
a
in my
live
environmental
bee?
science.
No, not a live. Okay.
Yeah. But so the last part of that study is they're trying to figure out now. They want to. I don't know how you would test this, but they want to find out if these spiders are looking at kind of a laundry list of items. Okay, does it have a swollen thorax? Check. Does it have these female antennas? Check. Or if it's all happening simultaneously in their brain, if they're making a snap decision. So I don't know how you would test that, but it'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, it sounds like though. I mean, they're identifying the antenna though first and foremost over other factors. Interesting. All right, here's the questionable origin story. Potentially questionable. It's just new, and I haven't seen this before. Researchers working in the swamplands of Myanmar have discovered several fossilized teeth from a new species of primate that lived 37 million years ago. This, if true, could rewrite the book on evolutionary origins of monkeys, apes, and therefore humans. The discovery was made by an international team of scientists led by paleontologist Jean-Jacques Jaga. It took Jaga and his colleagues 6 years to collect the popcorn kernel-sized molars. And while the team has only found 4 teeth so far, the specimens are already shedding considerable light on a number of hotly debated subjects, namely the origins and evolution of the so-called anthropoid primates, the origin of all higher apes, and the ancestors of all monkeys, apes, humans. Jaga and his team believe the teeth came from a previously undiscovered species of anthropoid, which they've since named Afrasia digitidae. I have no... Dijidae? Dijidae? Afrasia now joins a growing body of evidence that suggests anthropoids arose in Asia 37 to 45 million years ago before colonizing Africa. These 4 molars have offered the researchers something 2 decades of other discoveries in Asia have not. Unprecedented insight into the murky story of anthropoid migration. So until now, writes Science Magazine's Ann Gibbons, paleontologists have lacked the fossils to show where and when and how these anthropoids trekked from Asia to Africa. But these 4 molars were enough to show Jaga's team that Afrasia was closely related to another primitive anthropoid that lived about the same time in Africa, in Libya. So this is far northern Africa, right? So they examined the teeth of the two primates under a microscope, found they were very similar in size, shape, and age, and could have belonged even to the same species of primate. Such a close resemblance between Asian and African fossil anthropoid has never been demonstrated previously, the authors write in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. So, okay, on closer examination, however, the team noticed that the molars from the Asian Afrasia were more primitive than those of Afrotorius, the one from Libya, particularly in the larger size of the tiny bulge at the back of its lower molar. So this is one of those very... When you're doing anthropology and you're looking at bones, you're looking for these very slight, small, different deviations between the morphology of them. So what they're calling primitive traits, as well as the greater diversity and age of early or stem anthropoids in Asia rather than Africa, suggests that this group rose in Asia, migrated to Africa 37 to 39 million years ago. So I guess the Libyan fossils are the earliest fossils known to exist in Africa. And so now you have something that's predating that in Asia that becomes the arrow of direction for the migration. We've all heard about out of Africa for human origins, says vertebrate paleontologist K. Christopher Beard, co-author of the paper describing the team's findings. Now we think there was an out of Asia migration into Africa first, tracing back the ancestry. Now, again, granted, the whole that maybe this questionable, like we don't really, it's 4 teeth.
That's my problem with it.
Right.
You're taking 4 teeth and you're drawing an entire picture of a being just out of these teeth.
Right. Although it is, I mean, that's the thing, though. It's only 4 teeth, but it also becomes the only data point
Right.
on our map of understanding early origins of the predecessor of the great ape or the higher ape. So, I mean, if it's the only evidence right now, that's where the arrow is going to be pointing. It's the earliest evidence that's out of, and it's not, it's not from Africa, but from Asia. So there we go. We may all be able to trace our lineage to somewhere in Asia.
So you said the National
Myanmar.
Science Foundation, or no, the National Academy of Sciences. Mm-hmm. I'm so surprised they embraced this. I feel like there would be a huge pushback immediately. Out of Asia? No.
I think the big pushbacks have slowed.
Yeah,
Because
that's true.
every time there's been a big pushback
Nothing's
against
improbable anymore, I guess.
Right. There was a big pushback against Homo floresiensis, about Neanderthal intermingling, about all these things. And then every time you get to that's really what happened. And so then the pushback becomes, well, maybe we shouldn't be pushing back so hard after all anymore. Maybe we should let the science speak for itself.
I just need more than 4 teeth. You know how
Yeah, well, we all do. I mean, it's hard to chew with only 4 teeth.
those math nerds out there will know it takes 3 points to make a line, right?
So you have 4 teeth. That's a direct. You
I'm
have
just
now
saying,
a
if
very,
we need 4
even
teeth,
a curve with it.
even if we're going to say we need 4 teeth to say, okay, yes, this being was there, I need 3 different sets of 4 teeth to know that this is actually happening. Like, I need more evidence to prove that they didn't do. I mean, we need something. We need DNA analysis. That's what's all. It always comes down to for me is where is the DNA analysis?
It's not there yet, but it could. I mean, you never know what they can pull from this. Jack Pearson, you're absolutely right. 2 points to make a line. We have math
that's
nerds
true.
in the chat room.
Yes, that's what I meant. Okay, do we have time for one more?
We have time for 2 more. We got
Great.
2 more to get through quickly.
So, ant behavior could be used to make social networks better. That's right. I said ant behavior. The University of Madrid suggests that the behavior of real-life ants could inspire developers to improve the way these sites function. They can come up with algorithms modeled off of foraging behavior of ants. And so basically in these social networks, all of these algorithms that they come up with, it's all about referential chains. That's what makes a good social network, is being able to make connections between things on that network at a really good speed and with good accuracy. And that's what will make a successful social network versus a not successful social network, besides things like advertising and all these other things. It's about the referential chains. And so when they look at these ants, their foraging techniques involve pheromone chains. So when they're very methodical about how they forage for food, and then they leave chains of pheromones so that other ants can then find the food and bring it back to the colony. And so by looking at how these ants do that, people have been able to make algorithms that follow that pattern that will help them make the referential chains. And so the algorithm they've come up with from ants is called SOSACO, SOSACO. And so through that algorithm, they've been able to accelerate search routes between nodes in the social network. So they can grab familiar things, I don't know, be it photos or people or comments or whatever it is. They've found a way to find those things faster and more efficiently by studying
using
these ants.
the ant algorithm. That's totally rad.
Yep.
This proves no matter how advanced we get, we're no more advanced, really, than ants and nature. I mean, nature keeps showing up in everything that we're doing.
They have a complex social structure, ants.
Absolutely.
They know where it's at.
This is the last story of the night. The financial mania. Why bankers and politicians failed to heed warnings in the credit crisis. It's kind of funny. This is award-winning University of Leicester academic has identified the behavior of the manic behavior in the financial world. It says Western economies displayed the same kind of manic behavior in psychologically disturbed individuals in the run-up to the 2008 credit crisis, and it can happen again, according to this study. Bankers, economists, politicians shared a manic culture of denial, omnipotence, triumphalism, as they threw caution to the wind, says Professor Mark Stein, award-winning academic from, again, University of Leicester School of Management. Observing but not heeding the warning signs from the collapse of the Japanese economy in 1991 and the 1998 crisis in the Southeast Asia, the financial world in the West went into an overdrive of denial, escalating its risky and dangerous lending and insurance practices in a manic response, he says. Professor Stein, who has today been awarded a prize for innovative scholarship, identifies and describes the manic behavior in this 20-year run-up of the credit crisis in a paper published in the Sage Journal organization. The causes of the banking collapse that plunged the UK and many other countries into recession have been well documented, but an important question remains: why did the economists, and this is like, there's so many experts, economic experts out there, and this is why I almost don't believe that economic experts are really experts in anything but confidence. When things are good, everybody's on there.
Well, they're kind of just like a weatherman, right?
No, because the
Educated guess.
weatherman actually has to predict the future. He really does have to predict the future, and he has to be held accountable when the future doesn't come the way, if it rains and you have a vacation plan.
They're higher stakes, though. I mean, the weatherman is, do I take my umbrella today?
True. But are they really that good at predicting anything? Are they predicting things? I mean, once the economy's in full tilt and things are going good, they say, yeah, it's going good. And the economy's going bad, they're like,
people think
the economy's
they're
not so
predicting
great.
things. They'll put their money in there. That's
I know.
a certain
Well, that's
vote
what
of
I'm
confidence.
saying. It's a confidence. I don't think they really know. Look at the Facebook thing. All these people were dying to get in on the IPO on that. But anyway, maybe they'll make their money back some cold day in 2080.
Once they get the ants on board, that'll be good.
Yeah. So why didn't anybody anticipate this? Professor Stein argues that the financial world was suffering from the collective mania. Let's see. He defines the manic culture in terms of 4 characteristics of denial, omnipotence, triumphalism. Overactivity is one of them. A series of major ruptures in capitalist economies were observed and noted by those in positions of economic and political leadership in Western societies. These ruptures caused considerable anxiety among the leaders, but rather than heeding the lessons of the past, they responded in this way of attempting to prove their superiority over economy. So it's like they believe, like, that's the crazy thing about economy. It's like people who study it then think that they've figured out that it doesn't actually exist. Like what they've studied isn't actually a real thing. The massive increase in credit derivative deals, industrializing credit default swaps, removal of regulatory safety checks, the repeal and the Glass-Steagall banking controls were in response to a financial crisis. So we're in a financial crisis, and the response was to take away all those things that help prevent financial crises. Because obviously we're in a financial crisis. Those must be the things to blame. I think he's sort of oversimplifying this because I think those were all intentional things. I don't think they were an accidental response or the wrong response or a manic response. I think they were very calculated. But he has this is sort of a broad brush he's painting this with, but witnessing the collapse of communism, those in power in the West developed the deluded idea that capitalist economies would do best if they eschew any resemblance to those communist economies, therefore justifying unfettered financial liberalization and destruction of the regulatory apparatuses of capitalism. Consequences of this manic response have been catastrophic, with the ongoing Eurozone crisis being in many ways a result of this. Whether one examines the actions of banks and hedge funds or the limitations of rating agencies, auditors, regulators, and governments, a more worrying and deeper question emerges concerning why so many parties, more or less simultaneously, were implicated in such unprecedented and extreme risk-taking. You know, and this is sort of off the science tip, but for at the time of that whole financial collapse thing, I was starting to look into the real estate field instead of being a car sales guy. And I was at Ameriquest, which is a mortgage lending company, and I was also at this other Bay Area real estate company. And both of them had hard money funds, meaning they were planning on, when people started defaulting on mortgages, they were going to buy back the houses with cash and then flip them. So part of it, I think everybody, I kind of get what he's getting at this sort of like the sort of arrogance of those who may have thought that they were going to beat the system, because everybody was sort of planning on being the one who had that hard money fund who could buy back those foreclosures, not realizing that everybody else in the game had the same plan, was working off the same cheat sheet. Anyway, that does it for This Week in Science. Thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. Twis is also available as a podcast. You can Google us in the iTunes directory. Just look for This Week in Science. We're also available as an app on the Android phone market. You can look for Twis for Droid. That's the Twis, the number 4, Droid app in the Android marketplace. We're also on the iPhone as Twis, but I think it's like $2.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes will be available on our website, twis.org. We also want to hear from you, so email us at kirsten@thisweekinscience.com or justin@thisweekinscience.com.
Be sure to put Twis, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into oblivion. You can also contact us on Twitter, @Dr. Kiki, @JacksonFly, @Belaire's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover, address, suggestion for an interview, a haiku that came to you in the middle of the night, please let us know.
We'll be back here next week, and hopefully you'll be able to join us again for some great science news.
And if you've learned anything from today's show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just yet understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This week in science, 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 science. This week in science, this week in science. This week in science, 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 science. I've got a laundry list of items I want to address. From stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. So how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This week in science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say, and if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. 'Cause it's this week in science, this week in science, this week in science, 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 science. This week in science, this week in science, this week in science, 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 science. This week in science, 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 this week in science.